So I'm going to go over Desmond Tutu's natal chart and see how a screenshot essentially of the stars and planets at the time of his birth may have influenced him and may have left an imprint on him that led him to take the action that he did. So we don't have a birth time for Desmond Tutu, or at least I couldn't find one, so if you have one, let me know. So this means we weren't able to construct houses, and houses are the specifics of astrology that go into the realms of your life, such as home and family, or career, or love life. So this is more of an overall analysis and read of his chart without the houses and specifics that you would see when you have a birth time. Desmond Tutu was born October 7th, 1931, making him a Libra sun. He was born in Klerksdorp, South Africa. Immediately off the bat, we see that he has 3 placements in Libra. He has a sun at 13 degrees Libra, Mercury at 4 degrees Libra, and Venus at 20 degrees Libra. So this means he has a stellium in Libra. Stelliums are concentrations of power in that particular sign. Libras, by nature, are concerned with fairness, justice, and equality. And this theme is pervasive throughout Desmond Tutu's entire life. You see from the very beginning of his life, he started off as a school teacher and shifted to become, this very powerful archbishop. And his journey was one of realizing, I need a different medium to invoke justice, because at the time the education system was radically unfair and really pigeonholed Black people in their careers, and obviously favored white people. So, if you don't know much about the apartheid, I highly recommend you look it up, because it's atrocious and horrifying, and essentially was the mass suppression of the Black majority in South Africa by white people. And that is not a history that we should forget. This is also crucial to Desmond Tutu's story. His sun in Libra means the core of who he was, his personality, the way that his soul came into this world was all concerned with justice, fairness, law, and beauty. And we see this throughout his entire life. Desmond Tutu was an extremely charming man, and I think it's interesting how he was dealing with, incredibly difficult topics. He made them, accessible. And if you ever listen to Desmond Tutu's voice, you'll find that he has just this really delightful, exuberant voice that it sounds playful all the time, and it's extremely charming. I understand why he gathered such an easy following. The way that he spoke, his Mercury, the way that he taught, the way that he learned and received communication was all through the lens of Libra. So he communicated in a very just way, concerned with equality and fairness, and was intellectual, but also in a way where people felt charmed, and his work and his word were easily approachable. So through Desmond Tutu, Messenger Mercury and Libra delivered remarks in a way that felt fair and just and appealing and charming to the people around him. I think of this quote from him when I think of Mercury and Libra. If you're neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. And this is a very brief part of this clip. It actually goes on to talk about an elephant smashing a mouse. So the whole quote is here. His moon was in Leo, and here's the tricky part, right? All the other planets, we can pretty accurately determine within a few degrees where they were when he was born, because they don't shift that much. the moon was determined to be in Leo because it doesn't change on the day that he was born. So we don't know the exact degree, but we do know that his emotional world, his internal world, was all concerned with what Leos are concerned with, which is an emotional attunement to forgiveness, to great displays of affection and acts of loyalty. And we see this throughout Desmond Tutu's whole life. You know, he has a big family. He was known for being extremely loyal. And the forgiveness part comes in when he chaired the Truth and Reconciliation Committee. Truth and Reconciliation Committee granted amnesty to anyone who confessed their crimes in their entirety. There was no requirement of a request for forgiveness. They merely had to admit their crime in front of people that they harmed, essentially. And at first, Desmond Tutu felt like this would not do. Initially, while this may have seemed flawed, Desmond Tutu later reflected on the wisdom of the lawmakers, because the majority of people who requested amnesty and confessed their crimes apologized and essentially groveled for forgiveness in front of the families of the victims, the people that they had harmed, and the community at large. It's interesting because the whole committee itself was heavily criticized by both sides, and I think that, you know, when you have many critics and they're coming at you from both sides, you know, chances are it's because you're doing something powerful and something new. And Desmond Tutu, with his moon in Leo, had tons of courage to forge forward in spite of what the critics had to say. And if you don't know much about the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, I highly recommend checking out one of these podcasts. It's mind-blowing. And Desmond Tutu's entire body of work was heavily focused on nonviolence. I know, like, nonviolence can be problematic when it's contrasted with people who are being oppressed and taking action, right? But this was a core concept for Desmond Tutu, and I think that it's a core concept for many people and should be respected in the same way that action by the oppressed should also be respected. Alright, so Desmond Tutu, Venus and Libra, you know, partnerships were a crucial part of his life, and it was important that his partnerships elevated justice, fairness, and above all, upheld his moral and ethical values. And this was how he found wealth in this lifetime, be it wealth in partnerships, wealth in family, wealth in love, and even physical wealth. This is how Desmond Tutu rose into, you know, the loving, compassionate being that he is, Venus and Libra. Next we see Mars and Scorpio, and Mars and Scorpio is concerned with impeccable action. Scorpio is ruled by two planets, traditionally by Mars and then later by Pluto. And this energy is crucial to understanding the way that Desmond Tutu acted in this world, the way that he was driven, and his desires in this lifetime. Mars and Scorpio energy is all about obsessive transformation, action that's concerned with transforming and becoming. And it's also warrior energy, you know, it's extremely committed to the cause. And we know Desmond Tutu never stopped. He was a force to be reckoned with, and that even in his old age, he was concerned with justice and fairness and transforming unjust systems. Last out of this personal planets, we have Jupiter in Leo. Jupiter and Leo energy. Jupiter is all about expansion and opportunity, and anything you place it next to, it grows and expands, right? We can make a safe assumption that his moon in Leo and his Jupiter in Leo interacted in some way. We don't know whether or not they were conjunct because we don't know the degrees, right? But it's fair to say his Jupiter and Leo energy is all about expanding his own personal light so that he could stand as a light so bright that no one else could falter in the dark behind him. His good fortune expanded through his forgiveness, and his emotional world felt in tune and thriving when he was at his most leonine self, which is courageousness, it's forgiveness, it's big, bold, beautiful statements, right? A little biased. I love Leos. I am Leo. I think Leos are great, but yeah. But I love all the signs, so this little bias isn't actually that much of a bias because I love each and every one of them. And then it's also important to know that Jupiter in Leo is also concerned with creativity, right? So through creativity, he expanded and found fortune and opportunity and joy. Now, if you look at his chart, there are some aspects that we can speculate occurred based on the long time that certain planets stay in certain signs and degrees. So it looks like his Saturn and Capricorn stand in opposition to his Pluto and Cancer. Now, this pairing is really interesting because Saturn and Capricorn is all about structure and honestly sticking with the laws and working really hard and believing that your hard work is required for you to get what you want in this lifetime. Standing in opposition to Pluto in Cancer, which is intriguing energy, right? Because Cancer is nurturing, watery, moon sign, really concerned with the emotional state of things, and most people view Capricorns as like cold and less emotionally presenting. So what does this mean? Saturn in opposition to Pluto is all about radical transformation of society and structure at large, and we see that he did that his entire life. His dominant mode among his planets is cardinal. Cardinal energy is a spark that begins things. It's really like starter energy, right? Like, look at cardinal signs. We have Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. What do all four of these have in common? They stand at either the equinox or the solstice, and this means that they are the beginning of things. They bring on change, and we see that he was one of the most powerful voices of the anti-apartheid movement, one of the many sparks that took that oppressive structure down. His dominant element is fire, which is all about powerful action and exuberance and honestly optimism. And his optimism is in everything. You listen to Desmond Tutu and he pours forth optimism, and you can tell that his whole life was oriented around radical compassion and around the pursuit of higher values and truth, and wrapping things up a little. Now again, the aspects that we're making, may not be precise or exact, but it does look like he has his moon in a trine with Uranus, which indicates a rebellious spirit bent on creating change, meaningful, impactful, and powerful change in alignment with their inner truth and world. And yeah, I think that that's absolutely who he was. Venus and Mars are his planets with the most connections to other planets, and this indicates that the way that he loved, created partnerships, and had values in this lifetime, combined with the way that he took action, his desires and his drive in this lifetime. So his love life, his personal life, and his professional life were all profoundly impacted by his Venus and Mars aspects. North Node in Aries. So in this lifetime, his destiny was to rise to, the warrior energy, the person who was the initiator, the spark, and sometimes the competitor. And your North Node is often a space where we have growth. So it would be fun to chart in Desmond Tutu's account of his own life and where he turned towards that spark. If I had to guess, it had something to do around his school teaching years, right before he became a priest. So overall, Desmond Tutu's life showed themes with a lifelong emphasis on fairness, justice, forgiveness, law, and radical transformation of systems that no longer serve us. Never cease to feel wonder over how accurate people's charts feel for them. So this is just an overview of Desmond Tutu's chart. And it brought me a lot of joy to see, in my opinion, to see how reflective of his life his natal chart was. Our natal charts are a part of our own personal mythology that help us achieve our goals and dreams in this lifetime. So if you enjoyed this, please let me know. Hope you have a lovely day.